we're away. David, tell us about this paddock. We were in here some months ago, and you've stock had come out of here.
About 5 days ago.
Yep.
So yeah, this is some country that we did a little bit of no-kill cropping in here with a very small rate of warrego and armgrass seed, probably a little bit of the umbrella grass Chloris truncata as well. But this was country that just had, it was country that we probably did a fair bit of cropping on. It hadn't had a pasture sown in it. It had a lot of annuals in it, and we wanted to just try and kickstart some summer perennials in it. So we sowed it it was about 8 years ago, I think, and just a tiny amount of this seed. I had about 10 kilos of seed that did 100 hectares. So it was a minute amount of seed. And I'd forgotten that I'd even used this seed actually until I was going around in the spring and trying to see if there were any of the oats that we'd sown also coming up. And here are all these funny looking seed heads popping up everywhere.
And what was it? It was
this warrego grass.
Warrego,
yeah,
that's right.
Type of Paspalidium. And the arm grass, I can't remember its botanical name, but it's a very quick growing summer native perennial. Did occur in this area naturally. We've had a few plants of both of those species, certainly a little bit of warrego grass here, but just around the dog kennels where no one could get at it with a plough. So we didn't even know what it was, but it's an incredible species in summer. If you get any storms, I've never seen anything grow like it. But anyway, it's gradually, the great feature of it is that we just had a few plants here and there all over this. This is 50 hectares in this area. It's in 12 paddocks now. But over the last 8 years, it's gradually increased, so it's almost full coverage on a lot of this country. And it's incredibly valuable if you get a storm in summer, which we usually do. But the great thing about it is it was about, it's probably, what would it be, Charlie? Overall be 3 or 4 inches high after the cattle have left.
Yep.
They've eaten there's a lot of big, bulky, dry material here, probably about 45 centimetres high.
You can still see the odd bit of that.
Yeah.
Over there, can't you?
Yeah. That'd be warrego grass. But it's the cattle have eaten a lot of it. There's a bit of a green pick underneath it, so they got enough gut ammonia to manage to take the nutrients out of the dry stuff. And they've left it in what I reckon is actually perfect condition, because it's opened it up for the annuals, any cool season perennials as well in here, with a bit of sunlight getting through. It's got full cover. Wouldn't matter what happened here now, that you wouldn't get any soil movement. Just everything's covered.
I noticed that the dam back,
yep.
Just back over there, yes. It's low.
Yes.
As in, so
yes.
you've been dragging water out of there, or water hasn't been running into it from runoff, or what's
quite
a big dam.
The last time all the dams were full here was in the spring of 2016. There was no runoff at all last year. And there hasn't been any this year either.
And no runoff, not because you didn't get any rain. It just when it hit the ground.
Yeah, it all went in. Yeah. So you will hear people say, and it is a fact, that you probably have less runoff when you're running this sort of a grazing process. But we've got water in a pipe. You're pretty much committed to putting water in a pipe once you start having a lot of paddocks. We've got 100 paddocks now. So once you do that, you really have to do it, because you haven't got sites in every paddock for a dam, and you wouldn't put them there anyway because it'd be too expensive. So we have mobile water. The water follows the cattle around, troughs with just a polythene pipe that hooks up to a camlock fitting. It's very quick to move, probably takes an hour to do a move. I moved cattle this morning, took me just under an hour to move the water and the electric fence.
And how many in that mob?
300
cows
yeah.
in an hour moving that.
And you don't muster them. You go to the gate and they come through. It's it's a very quiet process. It's very pleasurable doing that actually. So yeah, I'm really only doing that 3 times a week, 3.5 times a week. So, I've got a lot of time to do this sort of thing.
You're producing time.
I'm producing time for interviews. Yeah.
We don't do enough, David.
No, we should do more of a challenge.
We should
just
do.
That you just choose to live too far away from Bora a lot of the time.
That's
Yeah. No, look, I think I haven't done this sort of sowing. I've only done it in about 3 paddocks, and that was all done in that 1 year, 8 years ago. And I did do one a couple of years after that, and it looked like it was a complete and utter failure because it was very dry. But actually, over the last 2 summers, it's become obvious that there's actually quite a lot of warrego and grass plants in all that country, and it's going to spread like wildfire because it just gets a lot of seed on it. It'll go through the cattle, and it's still viable when it goes through the cattle. So it's sowing without sowing, and it's sowing at no cost.
And you're seeing that in paddocks where you didn't sow.
Yep.
Cattle have been through, a number of times through the year.
All of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've also, I mean, I do. I've got a bit of a mixture of, I buy a couple of bags of seed from Colin Sykes up at Winona at Gulgong. Every couple of years I buy about a couple of $1,000 worth of seed. That's not very many bags, it's pretty expensive. But I just put it in a bucket on the handlebar of the bike when I'm poking around, and I've got a bit of warrego grass, arm grass, a bit of microlina, and I picked up a lot of kangaroo grass around the road over near Bookham a couple of years ago, and I've just been tossing a bit of that out. And over a number of years the plants will come up and they'll gradually spread. But you do, I wouldn't have said I'm a patient human being, but I'm probably tight. my bad. Frugal. That's
you got some
better
Scottish blood there, David?
No, English and Irish.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but so you don't have to sow this sort of stuff all over your place. If you just do, even if you do a few strips in a few paddocks, you don't have to sow a whole paddock. It spreads itself.
When you're throwing it out from the front of the bike, is there particular spots, where there's been some animal impact, or just as on a whim, whatever?
Yeah, no, I'll decide on a whim to go down and do a couple of paddocks, and I'll do strips at any random sort of pattern.
Yep.
But probably about 15 metres between strips, and a few plants will come up. Quite a lot of plants will come up the next season, and before you know it, you've got paddocks full of the stuff. So it's not, you don't want it to be absolutely dominant, and nothing is for very long. But it's a really good thing to have, because we really struggled to have anything that would grow in summer if we got storms, unless we had lucerne, and lucerne takes a lot of management to make it persist. So this stuff, you'd have to manage it to stop it persisting, I think.
And David, when did stock come out of here, cows come out of here?
It'd be 5 days today
5
since
days
they
ago.
came out of here, yeah. And this was the last paddock they were in.
And you actually see probably a bit over there, a little bit of
they'd be
fresh,
either cocksfoot or Polaris plants. These ones.
a little bit of green tinge there.
Yep. There's also, we've had, I think I might have mentioned this before, but we've had a lot of paspalum started to establish all over the place since 2010. We only ever saw it right beside the road, where it's pretty dominant out on the road, Polaris and paspalum. But we've never sown it, but it's getting everywhere now. Because with this sort of grazing, you're often grazing plants in summer as the season hays off, with seed on them, so they're spreading seed.
For free.
For free. Yep.
There's some cow pats in here. David, the dung beetle's not very active this time of year. You got a few.
No, they're having a holiday. They've been planning time for recreation. And, they're really not in evidence at all at the moment. I had a bit of a theory that they were absolutely rampant there a few years ago, and I got a sneaky feeling that they pupate in the ground. So that really wet conditions we had in 2016. I know they've said with grasshopper beds, if they get really wet conditions, some fungi can get into the chrysalises and make a lot of them unviable. And I got a sneaky feeling that's what might have happened here, because the dung beetle population is low, or it appears to be low. We'll see what happens when it warms up. They're certainly more active once it warms up a bit. So in a couple of months we'll start to see them, I think. But normally you do see them working on the patch at this time of the year.
Even this time of year,
yeah.
Not much activity at the moment.
I mean, there are, John Fern's got some species now that are winter active.
Yeah.
But I haven't got any. Oh, well, if I have, I haven't bought them.
Are you waiting for your neighbours to get them and hoping they'll just jump over the fence?
Yeah, they're flying in.
That's very in the theme of your farming, David, which I love. You know, just
Like being a parasite.
waiting for the freebies. No, it's smart. It's smart. You know.
No, it is. I think probably we've become more observers than doers. Really.
Well, that's a nice way to farm. Again, it's certainly not the norm.
No. Just.
But you're not the norm, David.
No, I never have been, Charlie. We're a bit like Roy and HG here in a minute.
We've had plenty of practice.
Yeah.